Printmaking, what I really like about it is I like to get dirty. So, you know, I get my hands full of ink under my fingernails, but it's something about being tactile, about printmaking that I love, working on the copper plate, scratching through the copper, etching. I mean, everything about it is something I love. I'm Gene Flores, the Dean of Visual and Performing Arts here at Portland Community College, Sylvania campus, and I teach printmaking in the spring and summer terms. So in the past, printmaking was used basically as a communication for making people understand what was missing, more of a communication art. Presently and now, actually it's more of a fine art form. Students get to understand, and not only students, but the environment and other people understand that printmaking is used as a fine art, much like painting, sculpture, and ceramics. Printmaking 1 is just understanding what printmaking is. I think a lot of students don't understand what printmaking is when they come into the class. A lot of them think it's a silkscreen class, and we introduce them to this totally old, archaic way of doing prints, which has been around for 400 years and hasn't really changed much. We start them off with etching, and etching is a process in which we do work here on copper plates. You put an acid resist coating on the copper plate and you draw through that coating. Wherever the copper is exposed, then you throw it into an acid bath. Hence it etches onto the copper plate, and then the students print that plate onto paper. Yeah, so this should be ready to go. The other technique we learn is relief, which is woodcut and linoleum cuts. They're both the same process as far as whatever you cut away from the surface of the woodcut or the linoleum is your whites. And anything remaining on the surface, hence the relief, is printed, and that's what remains black or any other color you choose to print it on. Printmaking 2, we focus more on relief. We start introducing relief in Printmaking 2, not in Printmaking 1. Printmaking 1, we stay with the etching process because it's so broad, it takes a whole term for them to understand what the etching process is at first. In Printmaking 2, the students will gain a better appreciation of printmaking and develop their own style and their own voice by using printmaking techniques. Printmaking, and this is all talking from my point of view because everyone will have a different point of view, but for me, printmaking, what makes it special is it hasn't changed in 400 years. I mean, painting has changed, brushes have changed, canvases have changed. Printmaking is basically the exact same way. You still draw on the copper plate, you still etch it, you still wipe it by hand, and students still run it through the press. Every time they have to do an addition, let's say of 10, they have to ink, soak the paper, and do it all by hand for every single print 10 times. The printmaking tools, what I always tell my students, what I love about them, they look like torture devices. So I'm not sure if that's a good way to get students to come to my class, but it really are. They're really these beautiful, crude looking tools that if you have no idea what printmaking is and you look at them, you're like, what are these things for? But once you understand how they're used and utilized and work, they're really invaluable to any printmaker. I believe all art students will really enjoy printmaking. It's much like I tell my students when they first come into my class into Printmaking 1 as an unknown newbie, never understanding what this process is eventually after your first or second plate, the common term is the ink gets into your blood because you become addicted to it. It's a really beautiful and fun technique. It's a lot of work. It's not an instant gratification, much like painting where you put the paint on the canvas and you know what it looks like. It's more labor intensive. So you really get in depth with the piece, but you do some really beautiful work and you get influenced by your students around you as well. It's a really great printmaking process.